So I'd like to share with you some of my go-tos that can help you be a more interactive and effective presenter, trainer, whatever it may be that you need to do. As Russ mentioned, I'm Heather Severino. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I'm also a Microsoft MVP for the Office Apps and Services. I've been working in the technology and training space for over 2 decades now, so that kind of gives my age away a little bit. But I started in college and I really enjoyed it. I've got a lot of Microsoft Office certifications and other certifications. If you're interested in knowing more about that, happy to answer questions during the Q&A portion of this today. If you'd like to chat with me after this session, you're welcome to connect with me on Twitter and on LinkedIn. I've got my information here and I'll share it again towards the end of the session as well. So what I plan for us to cover today is mostly things that you need to think about and practice and execute well, or set up well, design well, before you deliver that presentation, before you start that training session. So a lot of the things that we're going to look at that are tools and techniques apply before it actually happens. So we're going to be exploring some things in Microsoft PowerPoint that can be really helpful to you. And that's everything before. And when I say PowerPoint, a lot of what we're going to be doing is available in both the PowerPoint for the web app as well as the PowerPoint desktop app, whether that's 2019 or 365, those Win32 apps that you may have. Once we get to that, all right, I'm going to go in and I'm going to deliver the presentation, or I'm going to go in and set up and deliver the training or whatever it may be. Online, the things that apply are going to be things like this. You know, what can you do to make it that you're just not talking to that empty room when you're in a Microsoft Teams meeting? Because that's what it can feel like if you're the only person that is presenting. You want to make sure that everybody is listening, understanding their reactions to something, soliciting feedback, engaging them in different ways, maybe not necessarily the same way over and over again. So I'm going to show you some techniques on some of the things that are already available to you in your Teams meetings that can help you with that. And I will be taking a peek occasionally to the chat area if you have questions, so feel free at any time that you have questions to post those. If it relates to exactly what I'm doing at that moment and I catch it in time, I'll make sure that I cover it. If not, we'll have 10 minutes or more for Q&A towards the end. So that's what we're going to be covering during your Teams meeting, your training, your presentation. And this may not just be Teams meetings for the platform that you're delivering this in. This could be an in-person conference once we can have those again. This could be in a conference room with other folks, some things that you can do that can really help you with that. And then after, I don't have much for after. There's probably a few more things that you might think of, and feel free to share those in the chat area as we get through that after portion. But attendance reports, I'm not sure if you've heard about these in the sessions so far at Teams Day Online, but they are terrific. It's a great way for you to automate the process of collecting who attended that meeting, who attended that training, that presentation, whatever it may be. Have a way to follow up with them or share that information with someone else that needs to report that information. All right, so that's the agenda of what we're going to be covering today. So with that, I'd like to start with a reaction. So all of you should be able to see in the Teams meeting that we're in right now. If you look for the toolbar, you should have the little hand with the smiley face. That's your reaction panel. If you would, give me a thumbs up if you have used Designer in PowerPoint on the web. You can give me a thumbs up in the chat. You can give me the reaction thumbs up, and raise your hand if you have not. And this is Designer in PowerPoint on the web or Designer in the desktop app. All right, I see some yeses. I see some nos. That's great. All right, so this is one of the techniques you can use in your Teams meeting. Reactions. Ask a question. Give them the different choices of how you want them to react. I used to see in some Teams meetings in chat that you would ask for them to respond in chat, but sometimes with the way that they're logged in, they can't see the chat panel. So you have to have in your hip pocket other ways that you can still have them feel included and engaged in that meeting. Most everybody should be able to see that reaction option up on the toolbar, so that's just another way to be able to solicit that. As well, you could also ask them to unmute their microphones if they're able to, and be able to give that verbal feedback as well if they don't have those other capabilities. Excellent. All right, great. Glad we got that. So here is one of the techniques that we're going to be taking a look at. This is another one to get them to react and to have fun. Now, this one does require you to be able to see the chat panel. So if you're able to find Gif Jiff, I know there's debate on what it's really called. If you're able to find that at the bottom of the chat panel where you would type your chat message, go ahead and find it and post your favorite GIF for Spring Has Sprung. It might have to do with cats, dogs, flowers, whatever it may be. If you're excited about spring like I am, post that GIF for me. It's the hard G, yes. I hear you, Matthew. There's a great debate on it, I know. So if you want to find that GIF and just share your favorite one, awesome. Looks like great gifts. Yeah, so this is just another way to kind of break the ice. Or if you're at that point where it's a long training session or presentation, you have stretch breaks. This is another way to have that mental stretch break. Let's just switch it up and do something fun. Just get them re-engaged. If it's summer, I like to do dog days of summer, just those kinds of things that kind of break up the monotony of whatever it might be that you're doing. Thanks everybody for playing along and participating. This is awesome. Awesome. Yeah. I feel like I need to have prizes. So maybe if you want to vote on these different things, we'll see if there's some kind of like Amazon card or something that we can throw out there for whoever gets the most votes. So feel free to thumbs up your favorite gift there, and we'll have Russ collect that at the end of the session. So continuing on with some of the things that we have, we'll get back to attendance report here in a minute, but we're going to start here in PowerPoint on the web. Now we're going to flip over to a new presentation that I've started. And the reason that we're starting with this is to go back to that question about Designer. And I know some of you said, no, I have not worked with Designer. So this is a fairly new feature in the last couple of years it's been introduced to PowerPoint. It started here, I believe, on the web version first, and more recently came to the desktop version, if I have that correct. I think that's how it went down. But as you start to create your first slide in a new presentation, you might find that that Designer panel pops up and it's saying, oh, I see you've got this slide. Here's some suggestions on what you might do to change the layout of your title slide or of these other slides. So as I'm working on this slide, if you're not seeing Designer, it's over here on the right side of the home ribbon. Check out what it does. And the reason that I like to show this one to you is they introduced some new things. Just in the last month, I started noticing this, animations. So your backgrounds are animated, GIF, Jiff, whatever you want to call them. That's what they look like. So this would be a way for us to not only kind of change the overall theme and help them contextually understand what this presentation is about, but provide some animation so that when we're playing this in presentation mode, it's actually going to play that background for you. What do you think? Do you like it? If you've worked with Designer, have you seen this before? Love the stock videos. I do too, Hyatt. Yes, I think this is brilliant. Really changes it up a bit. Now, I know some of you might have to stick to your corporate templates and branding and those kinds of things, so you might be a little more limited, but when you do have that creative artistic authority, it is a lot of fun to be able to check these out. So this Designer panel does have quite a few that you can work with, and then there's more at the bottom. You can also search for pictures and other design ideas. So if you're not seeing everything you want, check out that Bing search and the design ideas here as well. So this is available in the web and the desktop version. I like this one a lot. What I also like about it is when you're working with pictures already on the slide, sometimes you're like, I just can't get these to look right. It just looks unbalanced with the number of images or photos or logos that I have. I just need a little help with that. And this one, you'll notice how I've got these logos. Now it does support only so many images, and I do want to make sure you understand certain templates will not work with Designer. So if you're not able to get that Designer panel to come up and give you those suggestions, it's likely that the type of template you're working with, it can't support it. So you might want to try a different template. But look over here what it's done with these images. So I'm able to change that layout. A lot of great things here to be able to mix it up a bit. All right. Oh, not in GCC yet. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry about that sad face. Hopefully you'll get it soon. So Designer, great for not only your title slide, but any of those body slides with different graphics and things that you have to kind of switch up the content a bit. Here's the next thing I like. If you are a multitasker like I am, I usually have a lot of thoughts going on and I'm thinking of 10 different things and I just want to get those things into a wireframe presentation that I'm working on. Dictate can work really well for you. And this is something that I'm starting to see in the other Office applications like OneNote. I believe it's even in Word. So if I want to start capturing some of those ideas, I can come over here on the home ribbon, turn on Dictate, and as I start to speak, it's inputting whatever I'm saying to the container I have selected. Agenda. Item 1. Next line. Item 2. Period. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off, but hopefully you noticed that as I was speaking, it's even able to understand things like next line, period, comma, exclamation point, question mark, all of those things it's able to capture and understand what it needs to do with the content on that slide. So this is a great way for you to either take notes if you're reviewing some presentations that are going to be presented soon, or if you're actually putting the presentation together like I am, to just sort of get those rough items in there and sketch out that overall presentation, and then go back in and polish it up and get all of the information in there as you need to. So that is called Dictate. One of the things I didn't show you is that the arrow, the drop-down arrow for that, shows you all of the languages that are supported for this. So if you are speaking in a different language, you can select that language, and then that will help Dictate to be able to capture that. And I've worked with this tool before in the web version for PowerPoint, so it didn't ask if I'd like to give the microphone access, but if this is the first time that you're working with either your camera or your microphone in one of the Office web apps, it is going to ask if you'd like to allow that to have access. And the way you'll know that mine has access is the microphone. It's showing right up here within that link area of the browser. So that's Dictate. I hope you like it. I use it quite a bit for note-taking in OneNote, as well as in some of the other apps as well. All right. So what languages is it available? Yeah, it's all of the languages that are listed here. Hopefully you're able to see those. There are some that are in preview. Those are the newer languages that they've added. So hopefully the language you need is there. Yeah, great for that feedback, Hyatt. You love to use Dictate to record a script for a presentation, then go back and tweak it. Yes, that's a great example of how to use that. Excellent. So here's the next one. I'm going to switch over to the presentation that I had been working on for today. And let's say that I'm getting ready to deliver this, and I just want to go through that flow. Maybe it's that script that Hyatt was talking about. Build the script first, and then maybe you want to try it out and just see, how does this go? Is this the right order I should deliver this in? What are my nervous habits? Am I saying any words that potentially could be offensive in different cultures, right? Am I making sure I'm inclusive of everyone? What are those ahs and ums that I might have built in? Is my pitch good when I'm speaking? Am I speaking too fast? Am I speaking too slow? All of those things that you might consider as far as being an effective speaker, you can actually coach yourself with Excel to help with that. Now, this is something that we use in an instructional skills class that we have for prospective MCTs. We actually have them do this as an exercise before they come to class, and then they send the dashboard screenshot to us so that we can see what are their habits, how are they doing, what can we help them improve along the way. But for you, as a trainer, as a presenter, as a project manager, as whatever you're doing where you have to deliver content, a presentation, there's something called Presenter Coach that can help you with that. Now this one we're going to take a look at, and you'll notice over here on my home ribbon, what I'm looking for is not here. So let's go to Slideshow, and over here on the Slideshow ribbon, it's called Rehearse with Coach. Now, it might have a slightly different name depending on which PowerPoint application you're working with. You might find it on the home ribbon, you might find it on the Slideshow ribbon, so it might be in a different home. How this works is it is going to need to be able to listen to your microphone. So again, if you've not allowed your microphone yet through the web app, you will need to do that. You'll notice the drop-down arrow. You can check the box to say show body language feedback, which means it's also going to be using your camera to be able to give you feedback on your hand gestures, your facial movements, your eye contact, that sort of stuff. I'm not going to check that box. We're just going to do the audio portion of it today, but I'll select Rehearse with Coach. And now it says, okay, you can start rehearsing. Mic is ready. Let's go ahead and start rehearsing. So as I'm speaking and I'm delivering this presentation to you, it's listening, and that little box that was showing in the lower right corner is going to pop up every now and then to give me feedback. Try speaking a bit slower. Apparently I've had a little too much caffeine today. So you get the idea of that. If I were going to welcome everyone to my presentation and I say something like, hi guys, thanks for joining me in today's 10 tools and techniques for engaging presentations, it may pick up on the guys and suggest that I use a different word. A more specific example would be if I were saying something like, all the salesmen, it might suggest that I use a term like salesperson, or instead of saying policemen, police officers. So those are the things that it will pick up on for you. Now, as I'm moving through this presentation, it is also listening to see if I am speaking directly from my slide. So if we go to this agenda slide and I say agenda before, designer, dictate, rehearse with coach, presenter live, it may prompt and let me know that I'm speaking directly from the slides. It's not being as accurate as it typically is for me, and it's probably because it knows I'm presenting to all of you. That's usually how this works, but it's usually really good at picking up on all of those nuances. There you go. That's one of my filler words. So is another filler word. When you're done with this, if you press the escape key, it takes us back out and it provides you with a dashboard of how you did in all of these key areas. Now, as you hover over these, it may also include and give you links to learn more about that. So if I want to learn more about filler words, it's going to take me out to a page that gives me some great information about filler words and some things that I can do, some recommendations to kind of overcome those. Now let's go back. If I hover over a particular point in my pace over time, it's going to tell me what my speaking was, roughly at each of these timestamps. That can be very helpful as well. It didn't pick up anything on inclusiveness, even though I was giving it some softballs there to do that for me. It didn't quite do that. Repetitive language, it didn't find anything repetitive. It said that I had variety, but this is a great thing for you to be able to check out. And then what I usually recommend is take a snapshot of this, a screenshot of this, and save it somewhere. Rehearse again. You know, come back and compare how you did with those, and hopefully it will help you to improve and make sure that you're going to be more engaging and interactive with your audience if you're able to pick up some great tips here and get rid of some of those habits there. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that you don't have this feature. I'm hoping that's not another GCC thing, but hopefully you'll have it soon. Yeah, glad you like this feature, Lauren. Anyone used this feature? Have you checked out Presenter Coach? Rehearse with Coach? Whatever it may be called in the version that you have. All right. Here's the next one we're going to try out. So for this one, if you will, if you have a mobile device with you and you would like to play along and interact with me, have it ready, have your camera open to take a picture of a QR code. This is called Presenter Live or Present Live, PowerPoint Live. It's got a few different names that you'll hear it referred to as. But what you're going to be able to do is when you take a picture of that QR code, you're going to be able to see the slides on your device. And you're going to be able to give me reactions on what you think of these slides, as well as provide feedback as to how I did with my speaking and the delivery of the presentation. So this is called Present Live. Have your Android or your iOS phone or tablet ready. Before I present, I'd like to show that if you want to make sure that this presentation is more secure, you can set it to be that only people in your organization would be able to access this with the QR code or with the short URL, or you can make it available to anyone, which is what I'm going to do. And also, if we go to the audio settings, you'll notice that you can choose your device, you can choose your spoken language, and if you're delivering this presentation or this training to an audience somewhere else in another region of the world that speaks a different language than yours, you can also set your subtitle language. So I'm going to set my subtitle language to Czech. I like to use that example. And then I'm going to close out of this, and I'm going to start the Present Live. So at this point, now that I've started this, once you take a picture of this QR code or you type in this short URL on the browser of your mobile device, it's going to connect you. And I can see in the upper right corner how many of you have joined my presentation. Excellent. I'm glad to see everyone's playing along. I'll give you just another minute to be able to connect to this. Once you're connected, because I'm using my microphone, you might also be able to hear me speaking through your device. And then once I see that we've got most everyone up, somebody's already found reactions. Excellent. I see the hearts coming in. Lots of hearts. Thank you. And clapping. I love it. So interactive, right? We're getting other people to participate. And think about just the level of participation by being able to see it on your mobile device, right? It's closer. You're able to go back in the slides once I start them. You're not able to go forward, but it's just a different way than watching it on your computer screen, especially if you like to multitask. All right, I'm going to go ahead and show the slides. And here we are. So you're seeing the slides that we reviewed earlier for the agenda. You're able to find the reactions. If you look for the little emoji reactions in there, you can give me feedback. So if I were asking, have any of you used Presenter Live before? Give me an applause if you have. Another way for me to look for interaction and know how many of you have used it. Excellent. Yeah. And now if you were to look in that as well, you'll see an arrow for you to be able to go back through my slides if you wanted to go back and check something else, but you can't steal the thunder of what I'm going to show you next. You can't go forward to that. While we're in here, if I press the escape key, that pauses present live. So we've not stopped it entirely. You're still able to interact with the slide that I have open and be able to go back through those slides and provide reactions, but you're not able to really do much else. And if I wanted to resume it, I could start it back up again, but you would have access for 30 minutes from when I pause it, unless I end it, and then that would exit everyone from that. I'm going to resume it because something else you'll find in there is a way to provide feedback to me, which tells me things like how I did as a presenter, what you thought of the slides, those types of feedback. And then what it will give me is a summary of that information after the presentation is over. It will email that to me, just a dashboard that has a collection of my scores for those categories that it's asking for feedback on. So you're welcome to provide that feedback if you'd like. All right, I am going to end that session. Let's go ahead and end it here. There we go. So that is a bit about Presenter Live and subtitles. I really like that you can use the subtitles with that in a different language. It is something that I used when I was speaking at an event over in Asia a couple of weeks ago, and I think it worked really well to be able to have that language involved. If you always use subtitles, this is another way for you to go in and choose your spoken language and your subtitle language, and then also choose where you want to have that caption displayed. If you want it to be below the slide, that's the default position. Above the slide, if you want it to be overlaid at the bottom or overlaid at the top of the slide as well. So if you wanted to always use subtitles when you're presenting, that's a separate way to do that outside of what we set up within the audio settings for Present Live. So that is everything that I recommend for tools and techniques to kind of help you prepare before you're going to be delivering something within a Teams meeting. Now, some of the things that you would do during the Teams meeting, we've already covered, right? We've covered reactions and how you might use something like that, how you might use GIFs, GIFs, whatever we're calling them, within the chat area to make it engaging, just a fun icebreaker, or at some point, some kind of a mental break during that meeting. We can also use forms, and I'd like to ask you a question here now. I'm going to open up a poll, and let me bring this over on the screen, because if you've not worked with polls in this way yet, so let me bring this over on the screen. So now we're seeing the meeting screen here, and if I look here at the top, forms has been set up. So this is something that you can set up when you're scheduling a meeting. You'll notice at the top there's going to be a plus sign for you to add in services or apps that haven't been associated with that meeting yet. And Russ and his team were kind enough to kind of set up some of these things for us before these meetings started. So the forms has already been enabled on the toolbar for me. And since I'm the presenter in the meeting, I have the capability to manage the forms this way. So it's similar to forms that comes with Microsoft 365, but it's a poll. So we're able to type in a question, type in those answer choices, and then launch it when we're ready in the meeting. What I like about this is before you start your training or your presentation, when you're setting that meeting up, you can set up as many polls as you want, and then choose when you want to launch those at different times throughout the meeting. So here's the one that I'm going to go ahead and launch for all of you now. You'll notice over here we've got some choices. I can either go back and edit it, I can delete it, or I can launch it. So I'm going to go ahead and launch it. You should see something pop up on the middle of the meeting stage area, the meeting screen, for you to be able to make your selection. You'll also find it in the chat panel of the meeting if you want to go ahead and vote on that for me. I've set it to non-anonymous, and I can go ahead and select view results to see the results that are coming in. Have you used a digital whiteboard? Yes, no, not sure. And I'd love to know in the chat area, what are you using for a digital whiteboard? Is it the Microsoft Whiteboard app? Are you using OneNote? Are you using Word, PowerPoint, something else that you're considering to be a whiteboard, or some other application that I've not even named? So feel free to share that in the chat area. It just helps everybody know what options you have out there. If you want to share why you use one over the other, feel free to do that too. Great, thanks everyone for voting. So 56% of you have, 44% of you have not, and 0 are not sure. That's awesome. Great participation, 34 votes. So that is forms and how you can work with a poll. Now, if I wanted to set up a poll just to show you the process, once it's been added to your meeting, we can select Create New, type in what the question is that we would like to ask, Type in your options. Add additional options if you want. You can allow them to vote on multiple answers. And then you have some options down here too on if you want to share the results automatically, keep the responses anonymous, or allow them to co-author. So I'm going to save it. And now we'll go ahead and launch this one. And you've got a new question that you can answer. So forms is one of the poll options. Depending on what your organization has set up, you may also have one called Poly. Poly is very similar. It does have some differences in capabilities, and it also has the capability to have a dashboard view of all the polls that you may be taking within a team channel. So Forms and Poly are the two that I know about. Because Forms is a Microsoft app, it's often the one that is included as far as security and what's available, but Poly may also be enabled within your organization. All right, thanks everyone for playing along on that. Oh yes, I love OneNote too. I'm a big fan of OneNote. Glad to see that you all are as well. Okay, so flipping over, let's take a look at that a little bit. So if we had the capability to work in OneNote or a whiteboard or maybe even a wiki, what are our options for that? So right now I'm sharing my screen with you, but let me go ahead and move this meeting out of the way. And here we are within PowerPoint. Sometimes you might even just use PowerPoint as what you want to take your notes in. But if I go over to Teams, and let's go over to just a team that we can demo in here. Let's go into general here for hospitality events. If you're working in a team channel, you have the capability to work with a OneNote notebook. You also have the capability to work with a whiteboard, digital whiteboard, essentially. Now, the difference is where it becomes really a sticky kind of situation is all of us in this meeting together, right? A lot of you are guests within this meeting. We are not working in a meeting that is attached to this team channel. It's not attached to this hospitality events team and the general channel. So what happens is if we're all in this meeting and you're guests, you're in my meeting, you wouldn't be able to work in the whiteboard with me because it's a standalone meeting. But if I were to invite all of you to be guests of a to be guests of a team that I own, then I can set up this whiteboard to be a tab within this channel, and we can work in this whiteboard while we're in a meeting. I hope that makes sense to you. It's a bit of a workaround. So like, let's say that we have some sort of a workshop that we're doing, and this is going to be our whiteboard. This would give us the capability to be able to go over and find this in the channel and work in it while we're still in that meeting. You can also add this to a chat. So if I wanted to add this as a tab within a chat, I could do that as well, but know that it would have to be members of the same organization in order for them to be able to work in that whiteboard together. So if you are trying to use a whiteboard in a meeting with other guests, it's going to look fine to you as the owner or the facilitator of the meeting, the presenter of the meeting. You're going to be able to have all the tools here to work with, but your guests would see a message that says that it's not quite available yet to those that are outside of the organization that they work in. But what I really like about this, if you've not tried this yet, is that you can have these sticky notes where you can have different topics and assigned teams that can go in and they can answer those questions or work on those issues together or those activities together, and then come back as a larger group and work together on that. Just something like this, and have them all come in and give their answers. We can have different sticky areas for them to work in. And then we've got it all captured in one place, and we can even export it as an image later to be able to save it and share it with the group. If this is something that you are doing internally within your organization, whiteboards work really well if you're using breakout rooms. And I'm sure breakout rooms have been discussed in some of the other sessions. You can have up to 50 breakout rooms. You can give those breakout room names. So contextually, we could have workshop room 1, workshop room 2, workshop room 3, and then they can go in and they can work on these whiteboards. The other thing that I like about a whiteboard is you could set it up like this with sticky notes, with text, with handwritten ink, whatever you want it to be, almost as a template, if you will, ahead of the meeting. So when you're scheduling your meeting, you can add this whiteboard as a tab at the top of that meeting area and go ahead and lay out all the information on the whiteboard and have it ready when you start the meeting for everybody to take their notes in. So I hope that helps. Not looking at the chat conversation right now because I did minimize that, but let me go ahead and get that back up again just to see if there's any questions I can answer, make sure we've got enough time here for you. Great. Let's see what we've got. So by adding Microsoft Whiteboard as a tab in a channel, external guests can use it. Yes, if they have been invited to your team. So you would have to invite them as a guest of your team and they would be able to use the whiteboard with you. That is the workaround that I've found so far that we're using for that. Of course, I'm a big OneNote fan. So if you have a OneNote notebook, wherever you have it saved in OneDrive, in SharePoint, you can share that notebook out if you've got external sharing capabilities within your organization, and they can work in it just as they would with you if they were internal in that notebook, and you can set that notebook up however you want. In some ways, I feel like OneNote might have more capabilities for that collaboration than maybe Whiteboard does, because it's already got the inking and it's got shapes and it's got tables and all sorts of ways that you can take different notes. It's really preference, I think, on what you want to do. Yeah. Definitely a game changer, sure, having that external access for sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Leanne, I see your point. Unfortunately, Microsoft 365 users can't install the whiteboard on iOS. Oh, bummer. I hadn't even noticed that. I'll have to check that out and see. Yeah, different capabilities on different platforms. Good point. Glad you're not the only one about Wiki. I like Wiki. Wiki has some great purposes for it. You know, Wiki is great to have like a read me first. Tell, you know, if I'm new, tell me what I need to know about working in this team or working in this channel. The big thing for me right now is not having that search capability. So I would just say it's great for certain things like FAQs, if it's just a few things you want to let them know, or just letting them know what that team is about, but not being able to search for it. OneNote, I think, is still the better tool for that, in my opinion. All right, great. Thanks, everyone, for participating in this so far. Excellent. Can we write with an external stencil? That's a great question, George. I'm not sure if that's in regards to the whiteboard. You do have just the tools that you have here. Unless you open it in the app, you might have additional tools. But then again, you have to be able to log into that, and that wouldn't be available to your guests in there. But check there. I know sometimes you have a ruler and some other things that you can work with, but I don't know about external stencils. Glad you agree with me, Sherry. I already knew you agreed with me since we've talked about that one before. All right, so that's most of the things that I wanted to show you. The final thing that I wanted to show you was the attendance report, and I don't think that I can get the attendance report of the meeting that we were in to show you a live one, and just for privacy reasons anyways, I'm going to go back to our presentation here that we had and just give you a peek, if you've not had a chance to check it out yet, what it looks like. I think it is awesome. So what it provides is a way for you to, from the participant panel, download the attendance report. And it's an Excel file or a CSV file, really. And in that CSV file, it gives you a meeting summary. It tells you who attended, and it includes when they joined and they left. If they left and they rejoined, you might see them in here multiple times, unless that's something that's been fixed, but also their email and what their role was in the meeting. So I think this is a great way for you to gather who was there and who you need to follow up with, as well as if you're working for maybe a broker or for another company and they require a school, they require you to submit who was in class that day. It gives you a great quick capability instead of you having to manually check off all those names of who was there and tracking that information. So I hope that the tips and the techniques that I shared with you today were really helpful. There's always a couple bonus ones I like to throw in or mix up. One of the ones that I like to use for a lot of sessions online is just a way for everybody to know what time they need to be back if we're taking that stretch break. And if you have a Windows device, you already have alarms and clocks on there. This is just one you don't have to download. So it's one that I like to use just to have up full screen, just to let everyone know what the time is. Because if we're spanning many time zones, I might say we need to come back at 1:30, and it may not be 1:30 for you when we need to come back. So you can set this up, you can play it, you can make it big. It looks pretty fancy. A lot of folks, when I'm doing this, want to know what it is. They didn't even know they had an alarm or a clock on their device. So that's one way for you to kind of keep track of that. Some of my friends that are in this session with me taught me one too. If you're using a virtual background in your Teams meeting, I don't have one on mine right now, but if I were to switch my camera off with the cover, the slide cover that I have, that virtual background becomes almost like a full screen slide. So a great one for you to say, be back, you know, taking a break, whatever you might want to have with a cute graphic on it. And it's just something interactive and fun for them to know that you are really on break, that they've not lost audio or video of you presenting. So thanks everyone. And we'll open up to other questions that that you might have for me. And please feel free to repost if I missed any along the way while I didn't have chat visible. I am going to scroll back and see what I can answer for you. I'd love for you to share your favorite thing that you learned today, or if there's something you want to share with the group that I didn't mention that you think is a great tip or technique to be more engaging and effective with your training and learning. Great to see so many familiar names here as well. Thanks for attending today. So question coming in, do you know when the new PowerPoint Live and MS Teams meetings will be available? I think that is already rolling out, Joyce. I have seen it in some tenants. I didn't see it here in this one today. So I don't know that there is, I don't know if there is a timeline as far as when it will be fully rolled out by, or maybe which tenants are getting it first. But it's on its way. I know that. Wish I had a better answer for you. But if anyone knows more, please feel free to share in the chat area. And I like it. I will tell you that. I tried it out the other day. If you have links in your slides, those links are clickable, which I think is brilliant, because how many times are you asking, can you send me the slides after this presentation, or can you upload them somewhere that I can get to them? So I think it's great that you can interact in that way. Hey, Leanne. So thanks again for attending today. I hope to see you in future sessions. I'm happy to be back for this third Teams Day online. This is always a fun event. If you have any specific questions about what I showed you or anything else in Microsoft 365 or Teams, I'm happy to give it a go and answer it.
Thank you so much, Heather. Excellent presentation as always, and very happy to have you back for a third time.
Thanks, Russ. Happy to be here. Can't wait for the next one.
Thank you. All right, everyone. So one of the things we've been doing is we've been taking snapshots of everybody in our together mode at the end. So if nobody has any other questions and you're okay, please turn on your video and we'll do a quick snapshot. Oh, there's a good background there. Dwayne, did you get a shot?
Sorry, I had to move my mic. Sure, we'll do it on a count of three if everybody wants to give us a big old happy TDO type smile. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. I'll drop that in the chat for everybody if you want to take it to Walgreens, get it printed out, frame it.
Thank you all so much for joining. So we have our speaker feedback, session feedback. Please take a minute to fill that out. We'll put that link in the chat. And we will also be starting our next sessions again in 20 minutes. So we'll give everybody a break, and we will see you back in 20 minutes. Thank you so much.